toast rack wearing crumbs, and somewhere past the pantry door the kettle talked in hums. You stood beside the dumbwaiter shelf with tea upon your sleeve, the oilcloth menus curling up as if they meant to leave. A tourist asked for marmalade, a child upset his spoon, and June came through the seaside glass with salt around the noon. Old Captain Bell sat farthest back, his paper opened wide. He read the shipping column twice and kept the world outside. The breakfast gong had sounded once, then faded down the stair. He never raised his silver head, he simply stayed in air. You looked across the thinning plates, then touched the little brass. Not sharply, not impatiently, but clear enough to pass. One ring went through the sugar bowls, one followed soft and near. He folded down the paper then, as if the room came clear. You brought his egg still warm in shell, his cup turned to the right, and set the toast where his old hand could find it by the light. He said, "I heard you miss and smile," without a trace of plea. You only checked the cream was full and let the answer be. Some kindness knows the distance between a sound and shame. It does not call a weakness out or give the hurt a name. It simply rings the morning twice where once would not be fair, and makes a place at table for someone almost there. Ring the bell twice, let the second silver fall. Let no one miss the hour for not hearing it at all. Ring the bell twice, a little more of sound, and all the room grew gentler for the way you turned it round. Ring the bell twice, not loud and not too late, just enough to bring him in before they cleared his plate. Ring the bell twice, slain brass beneath your hand, yet breakfast seemed more merciful than anyone had planned. By noon the cloths were shaken out, the gulls crossed wide and small, and in that quiet dining room, two bright notes held it all. The lamps came on above the stream, one by one, then two. The river took their trembling gold and pulled it long and blue. The office doors had emptied out in ledgers, hats, and haste. The bridge kept all our weekday feet in one familiar pace. I saw it first before I saw your face against the veil. That length of wool I knew is yours, the scarf on the rail. You always came before I did and leaned there toward the tide, as if the whole day only kept a little room beside No bouquet bright, no practiced line, no grand and public tale, just evening iron river wind, the scarf on the rail. You'd looped it through the blackened bars to free your hands from cold. One glove around the paper cup, one hand the railing held. The steam went briefly through your hair, then vanished in the dim. And all at once the bridge we crossed each day grew close and warm with him. No promise had to make itself above that traffic hum. We knew the hour, the corner light, the step by which I'd come. And love, when it has learned the week, grows punctual and plain. It hangs its little banner first against the dark and rain. You always came before I did and left one sign in view. So even from the farthest end, the bridge was already you. And still when winter takes the lamps and dusk comes early pale, I think of all that waited there, the scarf on the river kept on under us. The cup went empty thin. You took the wool back to your throat and tucked the whole sky in. The hallway smelled of chalk and paste. The bell had just rung through, and in the nurse's little room, the basin held the blue. You stood beside the medicine shelf with cotton in your hand, a ledger open to the date, a chair too small to stand. The playground dust was on his knees, his pride was worse than skin. He kept his chin set hard and high to hold the crying in. You washed the thumb and turned it slow, not making much of pain, then blew the iodine dry before it stung again. A ruler tapped beyond the wall, the class began to add, and all at once that quiet room seemed kinder than it had. You tore the gauze in one clean strip, then folded it just twice, and said the bravest boys you knew still had to take advice. He watched you tie the little knot as if it were a prize, then looked at me and looked away with sunlight in his eyes. My errand there was nothing much, a note the teacher sent. I stood beside the open door and forgot the way I went. You wrote his name beneath the line, then gave his sleeve a brush, and sent him back with both hands whole inside the morning hush. The bandage on the thumb, wide against the school day sun, was only meant to hold a hurt till arithmetic was done. The bandage on the thumb, I watched your fingers stay, and learned how softly care can speak when pride is in the way. No one would call it tenderness, a basin, gauze and chair, a boy who fell beside the swings, a nurse with pinned up hair. Yet some small mercies keep their place long after bells have gone. The hand that does not shame the wound, but helps the child move on. The bandage on the thumb, neat beneath his cuff of blue, held more than cotton, tape and thread, because it came from you. The bandage on the thumb, plain as any schoolroom thing, still shows me how a gentle hand can send the hurt back singing. The bell rang out for recess time, the hallway filled with feet, and in your book the morning stayed, recorded small and sweet.
The pie case held one lemon slice. The grill was cooling blue, and fly paper above the fan kept turning as it knew. You wiped the counter end to end with water on your sleeve. The coffee urn gone nearly dry, the night too warm to leave. A trucker paid and touched his cap. The screen door gave a cry, and all the road beyond the glass went empty by and by. I stayed beside the corner stool, my hands around one cup, pretending I was waiting out the heat that wouldn't lift. You found a nickel near the till, then crossed the checkered floor and fed it to the jukebox there, as if the room need more. The nickel in the jukebox, silver into song, was only meant to keep the place from noticing so long. The nickel in the jukebox, I watched your hand let go, and heard the kind of music that makes leaving move slow. The record turned behind the glass, a trumpet entered late. The sugar bowl stood shining there like guests who meant to wait. You leaned against the pie case edge and listened without show, then wrote the last order of the night where no one else would know. Years later, I remember still the fan, the blue lit chrome, the way that tune made one booth feel like home. You never asked me why I stayed, I never told you plain. The road outside was empty then, but not empty in the same. Some nights do not announce themselves as anything to keep. They pass through cups and closing signs, through tired hands and heat. Yet one small coin can mark the hour before the lights are dim, and give a man one song enough to know what followed him. The nickel in the jukebox, falling out of sight, still turns somewhere behind my ears in that roadside August light. The nickel in the jukebox, no vow, no kiss, no claim, only your hand choosing a song I never learned to name. The fan slowed down, the record clicked, the screen door held its seam, and in the chrome before it went dark, your reflection kept the dream. Before the sun had found the yard, the lantern by the tech room thinned. You laid the curry comb beside, one sleeve turned neatly at the wrist. The chestnut breathed against the stall, a little cloud in stable air, and straw you swept in yellow lines still kept the shape of where you were. You spoke her name not tenderly, no more than daily work allows, then opened up your quiet hand, and she bent down. The sugar in your palm, the sugar in your palm, white as a thing no weather could undo. She took it slow and morning changed, and all at once the aisle seemed strange, with how much gentleness had room to move. The sugar in your palm, the sugar in your palm. I fumbled with the halter strap, the brass was cold, the buckle tight. You smiled and warmed it in your hand before you passed it back to mine. Outside a wagon found the lane, a rook went lifting from the yew. You checked the girth, then brushed my cuff, as if red dust belonged there too. No grand instruction left your lips, you only said, not fast, let her see. And in the pause before she stepped, you looked at me. The sugar in your palm, the sugar in your palm, simple as oats and water in the pail. Yet nothing in that autumn chill seemed half so steady, half so still, as the small white trust she followed without fail. The sugar in your palm, the sugar in your palm. No band was set to mark that hour, no ribbon pinned, no prize to claim, only the leather breath and straw, the morning not yet come to name. But some hearts learn by watching first. What fear will yield its weight unto? Not to the hand that seizes hard, but to the one that lets it choose. The sugar in your palm, the sugar in your palm. I see it now, whenever dawn comes cold and pale. Not merely sweetness, small and square, but proof that care may travel where no spur, no word, no proud command prevails. The sugar in your palm, the sugar in your palm. By 7, all the stools were filled with caps, lunch pails, and thread. A seamstress with her cuff still pinned, 2 brothers smelling faintly of bread. You wrote the date up in the corner, turned and tucked one strand away, then sounded out the longest word as if it wished to stay. The radiator knocked below, a cart went rattling through the square, and every letter on the board looked calmer for your care. You never laughed at halted mouths or hands that gripped too tight. You only tapped the margin once and brought the sentence right. My pencil split, you crossed the room and lent your knife to me, then laid the shavings in your palm as neatly as could be. The lamp made islands on the desks, the window dull to cold. You said again so quietly, it seemed to steady all the chalk on your palm, the chalk on your palm. White as the proof a hard thing can grow mild. You carried all evening's broken sounds and never made one feel like a child. The chalk on your palm, the chalk on your palm. I watched it shine when you lowered your hand, and thought there are some who teach the tongue, and some who teach a man to stand. Years may leave their sums unpaid,
their rent due sharp, their winters long. Yet one clear word correctly kept can set a crooked day less wrong. And what you brushed from off the board did not quite vanish with the line. It stayed upon your sleeve and skin, a little patience made visible. The chalk on your palm, the chalk on your palm, the chalk on your palm. After the copybooks closed and the last chair slid, you gathered the stubs in a tobacco tin like bits of faith from what the evening did. The chalk on your palm, the chalk on your palm. No jewel could have seemed half so fine, for I went down the darkened stairs with half your brightness on my mind. The grocer barred his lower door. The hallway smelled of apples and coal, and on the rail where your hand had passed, one pale mark rode with me home.
The shop fan turned the patterns up and laid them down again, while August held the window glass in heat too tired to end. You stood beside the repair bench there, with oil along your nail, the belts in black and rubber loops, the bobbins in a pail. A girl came in for navy thread, a tailor asked for chalk, and every footstep on the boards made little wooden talk. The widow brought her singer in, wrapped round with kitchen twine. She said the wheel had caught last night and would not keep the line. You lifted off the cover cloth, then paused beneath the glare. A bent needle in the hammer foot was still held crooked there. Leave the needle there, leave the needle there. Not every broken little thing is ready for repair. Leave the needle there. I watched your fingers stay, as if the work it failed to finish had not gone away. The counter fan pushed warm air back, the street lamp found the floor. A busboy crossed the alley twice with dishes from next door. You turned the hand wheel half around, then let the motion cease. The thread still held a strip of white, no wider than a sleeve. She looked at it and touched her throat, then said, almost too low, it was his Sunday shirt, I think. The cuffs were left to sew. You did not ask how long ago, or offer softer thread. You only set the screwdriver down beside the words she said. Some labor stops without a sound, a seam left out of true. The cloth remains beneath the foot. The hand is gone from view, and some who mend the common gears know when the gentlest art is not to make the wheel move on, but leave the stop place part. Leave the needle there, let the bent point keep the little hold it still has made on what she could not keep. Leave the needle there, no comfort dressed as fact, only your hand refusing yet to hurry sorrow back. At closing time the belts hung still, the fan gave up its air, and in the lamplight on the bench, that small bright bend stayed there.
The window kept the city warm. The curtain rose and fell. One yellow bar from out the hall lay on the floorboard still. You'd come in tired and half undressed, and fallen fast asleep. One wrist across your forehead there, as if the day ran deep. The room was small as rented things are small in August heat. A picture chair, 2 traveling cases, and one soft pair of feet. So I rolled the bath towel tight and laid it to the floor to keep the draft, the light, the talk from reaching anymore. I made a little shore of cloth against the world outside, the towel under the door. Somebody laughed beyond the stairs. A tap kept dripping thin. A woman's heel went past our room, then nothing else came in. You never stirred except to turn and find me in your sleep. Your hand came searching once for mine and settled there to keep. No vow was spoken in that heat. No moon made silver news. Only a plain white hotel towel and one thing I could do for love when it has had no ease and money's running poor. We'll make a kingdom out of less than most are looking for. So I rolled the bath towel tight and laid it to the seam, and all the hallway with its lamp stopped just outside our dream. The room stayed small, the bed stayed hard, the night stayed hot and sure. Still I have loved few things as much as the towel under the door. By morning, it was only cloth beside a scuffed-up frame, but all night long it held the dark and let us be the same. The pool bell rang at 4:30. The whistles lost their bite, and July shone along the tiles in squares of watery light. She stood beside the towel desk there, with soap upon one sleeve, the wire basket stacked by number, the air too warm to leave. A boy came in with goggles lost, two sisters shared a comb. The lifeguard shook his canvas shoes and called the last ones home. Then near the bench, a little girl rose slowly from her chair, one rubber cap held in her fist, two bright new crutches there. Her mother reached to take her arm, the child pulled back with pride. The wet floor waited blue and still between the bench and side. She saw the shining danger first, before a foot had found that one slick square beside the drain where laughter thinned the sound. No warning crossed the locker room, no pity filled the place. She only took a folded towel and bent with quiet grace. She dried the tile from edge to edge, then stepped behind the door. So what had nearly caught the child was only floor once more. Dry the tile first, let the crossing be. Let a little borrowed courage move where none can see. Dry the tile first, plain cotton blue and white. Yet all the room grew safer there before she entered light. Some falls are stopped before they fall, some kindness leaves no trace. A towel folded back again, a hand not shown its place. And some who know the tender art of helping without claim can clear the smallest shining square and never call it shame. Dry the tile first, let the crutches ring. Let her reach the doorway proud as if she did the thing. Dry the tile first, no ribbon, no applause, only a quiet patch of floor where fear forgot its cause. The basket slept, the pool went dark, the towel cart rolled away, and near the drain, one Drier Square held summer for the day. The folding chairs are set in rows, the soup is keeping warm, and under stairs the basement pipes begin their little storm. You stand beside the kitchen shelf with steam along your sleeve, a pencil tucked behind your ear, too busy to believe. The enamel pans are cooling down, the ladles hang in pairs. A stack of plates waits near the door for whoever takes the stairs. You taste the broth and lower salt, then stir it once again, as if the whole cold neighborhood were coming in from rain. The boys bring chairs from Sunday school, the old men move them back. A woman folds the tablecloth along its printed crack. You open up the recipe box and find the card you need, written small in someone's hand for cabbage, cream and seed. You read the corner where it fades, then smile and close your eyes, and set the card back where it lives, among the cakes and pies. The card in the recipe box, soft at the edge from years of hands, told more than any silver dish of what a room understands. The card in the recipe box, not merely how much flour to take, but how to feed a winter hour and leave no one awake to ache. No one will praise the pencil mark, the thumbprint near the name, the little cross beside the word that says to lower flame. Yet every supper has a past that stands behind the steam. Somebody's measure, somebody's care, still entering the dream. The card in the recipe box, placed back between the bread and stew, held all the quiet hands before that somehow worked through you. The card in the recipe box, plain as paper, worn and small, yet when you closed the wooden lid, it seemed to bless us all. The supper bell is rung upstairs, the basement fills with feet, and in the box the old card rests, still warm from being read. The platform wore a coal smoke dusk, the lamps had just come on. One porter wheeled an empty cart, the later train not gone. Your suitcase showed its corner scuffs, your ticket folded twice. I straightened out your traveling glove and offered useless advice. You said the weather south might clear by morning, if not then, and all the steam along the tracks made ghosts of common men. I could not warm the window glass or ride the dark with you. I only slipped one little sun inside your coat to travel through. The orange in your pocket, you never saw me do it there. My hand was quick and Between the scarf, the timetable, the whistle and the call, the fruit was warm from where it lay beside the stove at home. I thought perhaps it might keep noon where you would sit alone. No vow was set above the steam, no kiss delayed the train. Only the guard's lamp swinging green and soot that fell like rain. Yet after all these years I think of what love sometimes is. Not stopping what the miles will do, but sweetening them like this. I could not shorten any road or spare you station blue. I only gave your later hand a little round bright thing to use, the orange in your pocket. Somewhere past the freight yard bend, when all the fields were gone, you must have found that hidden weight and known what had been done. I like to think you smiled at once before the lamp swung shut, and kept one piece of evening light against the winter in your coat. Twilight leans upon the frames, the lamp is shaded low. A phonograph begins its waltz in accents soft and slow. You draw my chair a little back and hold your hand to mine. The velvet hush about the room feels faithful and benign. The embers breathe beside the grate, the rain speaks on the pane, and all the little things we own grow still to hear the strain. When the needle caught, you hummed a turn the room forgot, and love went on where music stopped. When the needle caught, your slipper finds the older mark, the rug remembers where we lost one winter to the snow, and found one spring in prayer. You smile and murmur, darling heart, so lightly with a sigh, as if the years were folded small and set somewhere nearby. The record slips, then hesitates. One note hangs in the air. A little starlight from the glass falls silver on your hair. No grand serenade filled the stair, no trumpet photograph let go. You never missed the frame. You only sang the absent beat, so warm, so sure, so slight. And in that borrowed thread of tune, you kept the whole room right. When the needle caught, you hummed the turn the room forgot, and love went on where music stopped. When the needle caught, the record thins to whispered dust. The fire withdraws to rose. Still one soft measure lingers on, where only starlight knows. And long after the last note fades, and long after the rain has talked, my heart keeps time to that small hum from when the needle caught.
The ropes were loosed without a fuss. The bell gave one small sound. The water took the ferry side and pulled the shoreline round. The river wore a pewter sheen. The gulls kept to the stern. Your hat was pinned against the wind. Your collar softly turned. The bench along the outer rail still held the morning through. I saw you pause before you sat and knew what I must do. I spread the market pages down across the painted slats. The grocer's ad, the racing odds, the weather, this and that. So nothing cold should find its way through wool and age and sense. The paper on the bench, you sat and spoke of common things, the butcher and his knee, your sister's letter from the coast, the pears still on the tree. The ferry cut the river wide in slow and patient halves, and every little thing you said made homely all the draft. No vow was ever needed there above the diesel hum. No rose, no grand demonstrative word, no drum for what we've done. For love, when it has had its years, grows practical and quick. It sees the damp before you do and minds it with a flick. I spread the market pages down before you even knew, and all the newsprint in the world turned warm by sheltering you. At landing, when you rose again,
The wet had left no trace, only the faint shape where you'd been, and one dry, tended place. The paper on the bench, I folded it beneath my arm when all the crossing passed. One headline blurred, one corner torn by a river wind at last. And somehow that poor common sheet was finer than it sounds, for all the day it seemed to keep the shape of where you'd lean down.
They were folding down the striped awning. The buckets smelled of green. One little lamp above the stall made common flowers clean. I had not meant to stop at all. I only slowed to see the florist tying up the day with tired economy. The roses all were spoken for, the lilies wrapped in white. One bruised armful of carnations stayed leaning toward the light. I took them home in yellow paper, close against my coat. And all the evening came with me the bruised carnations. One petal loosened on my glove, like silk that could not stay. The florist said they'll open yet, then turned and looked away. I passed the hat shop's darkened glass, the bakery closing down, and felt those small imperfect blooms grow richer through the town. I took them home in yellow paper, close against my coat. And all the evening came with me the bruised carnations. No grand bouquet had sought my room, no ribbon card or call. Yet all night long those dented blooms made sweetness of it all. And I thought some things wait till dusk to show what they can be. The ones the early daylight missed come late enough for me. I set them in the blue glass pitcher by the bedstead and the chair. And all at once the room grew kind. The bruised carnation if it all